Hello, everyone. Mason Winfield again with Psi-Friday with Mason. We're nearing the middle of July 2026. Last weekend was the 4th of July. I talked about some presidential coincidences, not only in general, but also on the 4th of July. There are times when you really start to wonder if there couldn't be something a little special about this nation. But for today, I figured I'd continue something that I couldn't develop last time. Something I will call the Order of the Dragon. There are two major strains, there are said to be. From the era of the founding, there were said to be two major directions for the growth of American democracy. One of them was the model of Thomas Jefferson, which is kind of strong on states' rights. And as I recall, Jefferson was really fond on the rights of the individual voter. Unfortunately, not enough of them were other than white landowning men at the time, but you got to start somewhere. John Adams and his son John Quincy Adams come along, and the Adams philosophy of American government is a little different. They kind of like maybe I hate to say this, the rule of an educated elite. They like people looking out for other people. And they also had a little bit of a different attitude about voting. But these two strains, these two directions influenced American politics for surely the first 50 years. Both of these men, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, towering intellects. But there is some obscure talk out there about John Quincy Adams and his whole family that connect him with an obscure occult society called the Order of the Dragon. And I'm not sure that's what its official name is because it's so buried, it's so obscure, it's so top secret. It may not even exist. But if it did exist, the Order of the Dragon was said to have been connected with an old strain of British paganism. Earth-centered, goddess-centered, Gaia, megalithic culture, maybe druidic. And if, the poet like me thinks, wow, that would be really cool to have that still operating, turning us back towards a more of a spiritual way of looking at the earth, at each other, at life. I mean, I've said this before, the ancient world with all its spirituality was no perfect place, but yet it had some improvements over the direction we're going right now. Now, the guy who exposed me to this idea was a New Hampshireman, an antiquarian named Andrew Rothovius. I think his dates might have been 2001 to 2009. I actually met him, I believe in the early 2000s. I met him at a conference of the New England Antiquities Research Association. He was a lovely man. We had a wonderful talk. But Andy Rothovius didn't give me any information direct enough to overwhelm the idea of how unlikely the idea was. And so I can't prove it to you, and I can't even assert it too strongly. What I will tell you is this, though. John Adams, and he left a lot of descendants in the United States. And not only was the son John Quincy, another shy intellectual who became an American president, one of the more unlikely, he was the 5th U.S. president, I think. And he was one of the more unlikely people ever to be president. He was nervous in public. All he wanted to do was spend time in his library. And yet, one member of the Adams family, it might have been one of John Quincy's brothers, Henry Adams, wrote a very curious book. I remember reading it years ago and parsing it for factoids about the Dragon Society. The book was called Mont Saint-Michel and Chartres, or Chartres. It was written about a pair of French cathedrals. Like 300 pages of this old book. And I'm going through it with a clipboard and a pencil and looking for, factoids. I didn't necessarily find them, but somebody who really believed in the old, sacred, megalithic architectural ways, the way a guy might express that around the middle 1800s would be writing a book about the cathedrals. Don't forget that John Ruskin, the great Victorian, started out that way. Thank you all for joining me on another Psi-Friday with Mason in mid-July 2026. And if any of you uncover anything about this Dragon Society or any type of paganism connected to the American presidents, I would love to hear it. Until the next time.